what we can anticipate is that the survival competition will happen fairly quickly. What they are trying to promote is to really attract.
You need to understand what is happening right now, because the American auto industry is not just changing. It is being surrounded, quietly, strategically, and from a direction nobody saw coming. I'm talking about Chinese EV factories, not in China, in Mexico, right across the border. And if you think this is some future hypothetical, some what-if scenario, you're already behind, because while Washington was busy slapping 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs coming from the east, China was quietly building an on-ramp from the south. This is shadow signal, and today we're going to talk about the hole in America's EV wall that nobody wants you to see. Let me set the stage. Right now, there is a 247.5% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles imported directly into the United States. That's not a typo. If BYD tried to ship a Seagull from Shanghai to San Francisco, a car that costs $7,800 in China, it would land here at over $26,000 after duties. That tariff wall is massive. It's designed to keep Chinese EVs out, and on paper, it works. But here's the thing about walls. They only work if they don't have doors. And Mexico? Mexico is a door the size of a freight train. Under the USMCA trade agreement, the one that replaced NAFTA, if a car is built in Mexico with 75% North American content, it can be exported to the United States virtually duty-free. That's a 2.5% tariff, not 247, not 100, 2.5%. Now you might be thinking, okay, but Chinese companies aren't building cars in Mexico. And you'd be wrong. They're already there. Foton has an assembly plant. JAC Motors has been operating in Mexico since 2017. Shackman builds trucks. And the big one, BYD, the largest EV maker on the planet, announced plans for a 150,000-unit factory near the U.S. border. Let me say that again. The company that makes a fully electric car for less than $10,000 was planning to build a factory within driving distance of Texas. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In July 2025, BYD shelved that factory project. Executive Vice President Stella Lee cited geopolitical issues significantly impacting the automotive industry. Translation: Washington freaked out. Trump had already floated a 200% tariff specifically on Chinese vehicles assembled in Mexico. The pressure worked. For now, but don't celebrate yet. Because while the factory got paused, the cars did not. Chinese EV exports to Mexico exploded by 2,367% in November 2025 compared to the same month in 2024. That's not growth. That's an invasion. BYD alone sold 80,000 vehicles in Mexico over 2 years. Chinese brands now control 70% of the EV market in Mexico. 70%. And here's the kicker. Mexico is now the largest destination for Chinese cars on the planet. Okay, deep breath. Let's talk about why this matters. The average price of a new car in America right now is nearly $48,000. The average EV? Over $55,000. Meanwhile, BYD Seagull sells in China for $7,800. That's not a typo. That's 3 times cheaper than the cheapest new car you can buy in America. It's cheaper than the average used car in America. And this isn't some stripped-down golf cart. The Seagull has a 252-mile range on the bigger battery. It has a 12.8-inch infotainment screen, wireless charging, fast charging in 30 minutes. Former Lamborghini designers worked on it. Automotive experts who tore one apart said, and I quote, "This doesn't come across as cheap," for $7,800. Meanwhile, Ford lost $5.1 billion on its EV division in 2024. They're projecting another $5.5 billion in losses this year. GM took a $6 billion hit. American automakers are bleeding money trying to compete in a race where their opponent has a 30% cost advantage built into their DNA. It's embarrassing. Now, some people in Washington understand this, and they're panicking. Quietly. The USMCA agreement is up for review in 2026. Trade officials from all 3 countries have already started discussions about non-market policies and practices that undermine the agreement. That's diplomatic language for China is using Mexico as a backdoor, and we need to close it. The U.S. has implemented new rules requiring that any vehicle with Chinese software or hardware in certain connected systems will be banned, starting with 2027 models. Canada slapped 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs. Mexico ended its tariff exemption on EV imports from countries without free trade agreements. But here's the problem. Chinese companies aren't stupid. They see the pressure coming, and they're adapting. BYD isn't just selling cars in Mexico. They're building an ecosystem, charging networks, partnerships with local energy companies. China's State Power Investment Corporation bought one of Mexico's largest private renewable energy producers. They're installing fast chargers across the country. This isn't a sales strategy. This is infrastructure colonization. And it's working because the math is devastating. Chinese automakers have a 25 to 30% cost advantage over American competitors. They control the battery supply chain. They process the critical minerals. They have cheaper labor, cheaper energy, and government subsidies that dwarf anything the U.S. offers. Elon Musk said it himself, January 2024, on Tesla's earnings call. Quote, "If there are not trade barriers established, they will pretty much demolish most other car companies in the world." Demolish. That's the word he used, and Elon doesn't scare easily. So what happens next? Right now, Chinese EVs are sitting in Mexico, tens of thousands of them, stockpiling, waiting. The 2026 USMCA review will determine whether that door stays open or gets welded shut. If Mexico implements its proposed 50% tariff on Chinese EVs, the flood slows. If BYD figures out how to hit that 75% North American content threshold, or if they secure exemptions through local manufacturing, the flood continues. And American automakers? They're watching this unfold while losing billions every quarter. Ford just wrote down $19.5 billion. They canceled electric SUVs. They're converting an EV battery factory into an energy storage facility for data centers. They're retreating. Meanwhile, Chinese automakers just overtook Japanese automakers as the largest vehicle sellers in the world. First time in 20 years, BYD is on track to surpass Ford in total global sales, not EV sales. Total sales. Look, I'm not here to tell you what to think about this, but the facts are the facts. America built a wall to keep Chinese EVs out, and China found a hole. It's called Mexico. They're filling it with cars, chargers, batteries, and infrastructure. And while Washington debates tariffs and trade reviews, Chinese companies are expanding their dealer networks, doubling their sales targets, and positioning themselves for the moment the door opens even a crack. The question isn't whether Chinese EVs are good. They are. The question isn't whether they're cheap. They are. The question is, how long can America keep them out when they're already parked right next door? So let me ask you this. If a BYD Seagull showed up at a dealership near you tomorrow for $15,000, fully loaded, 250-mile range, would you buy it? Or would you pay $48,000 for something American? Be honest. Drop your answer in the comments. Smash that like button if your brain is spinning right now, because mine is. Subscribe if you want to see what happens when we cover the Chinese EVs that are already crushing it in Europe, South America, and Southeast Asia. This is Shadow Signal. I'm out. Peace.